Hi everyone, welcome again to Bake Your Way Kitchen. On today's video I'm going to show you how to make a chocolate pavlova. Now, if you haven't had a chocolate pavlova, it's a very unique cake. There's no flour, there's very few ingredients, and the volume of the cake comes from egg whites. So it's a delicious cake. It's got a nice marshmallowy type of interior. And I just love it. It's a nice alternative to a cake. It's lighter, and it's just great to make. It is best to use just a regular mixer, a KitchenAid if you have one. If not, you can use a handheld mixer. It's just we're beating the egg whites to stiff peaks, so unless you want a real arm workout, it's best to use either a handheld or a stand mixer. The first thing you're going to need is a very clean bowl, because what we're going to need to do is put in 6 egg whites. There we go. And we're going to need some salt, or you could use cream of tartar, whatever you've got. I'm going to put in about 1/3 of a teaspoon, which is a little bit more than 1/4 teaspoon, obviously. Whoops. Let a little bit go everywhere. And that just helps it get going. So I'm going to just beat this until it gets nice and foamy, which should just take a few seconds in this mixer. Alright, so the mixture, it's very quick to get to the foamy stage. It's gotten nice and foamy, so now what we need to do is add 1 cup of sugar, granulated sugar. You can use a super fine sugar. That actually might help the sugars dissolve better in the egg whites, but it's up to you. And you're going to want to add this in about a tablespoon at a time until you've beat it all in and the egg whites are have nice glossy, stiff peaks. And I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so we're just, I just want to show you, I actually added in all the sugar. We're not quite at stiff peaks yet, but you can see it's already gotten pretty glossy. So I'm going to keep beating this for another couple minutes, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. You might want to scrape down your side of any additional sugars that might have accumulated along the side. And we're just going to keep beating this until we reach those stiff peaks. Alright, let's see how we're doing. Still a bit droopy. We're almost there. Just a few more minutes. That's why it's good to have a stand mixer, because you want to make sure that you get it to stiff peaks. Alright, that's looking pretty good. You see it's no longer drooping. See, it's still staying up like that. The beak is still there, so we're good to go. So we now have our egg white mixture, and I'll show you in a second what that looks like, because the rest of the ingredients we're going to fold in, because we don't want to deflate the air that we've put into these egg whites. So, whoops. Try to get the rest of that off later. Alright, so now we're going to add in some sifted cocoa powder, so I'm using 1/3 of a cup. So that's our first step. So we want to try to get that in gradually. And I'll just show you what all this is looking like, just so you can see right here the folding motion, kind of up and around, up and around. And by sifting your cocoa powder in advance, it will prevent a lot of lumps. I find even after I do it, there's still a few left, but there's always quite a few. And as you're sifting this in, we're going to add in some balsamic vinegar, about 1.5 teaspoons. And this helps give a bit of that tang that you get from a pavlova. And on top of that, I'm going to add about half a teaspoon of espresso powder. I just think that chocolate and espresso or coffee powder just go so well together. And one other thing we're going to add that I don't have out, that I will get in 1 second, is some vanilla extract. Now, when you're using your bowl, make sure you're going right to the bottom because there's going to be those streaks of white. So I now added in a bit of the vanilla, and I've incorporated it enough. I don't want to mix it too much. So what I've got here is a parchment paper. Now, I actually use these for baking something like cookies. I'm using the back side. The thing about parchment paper, it is expensive, so you can reuse it. You're going to need to preheat your oven to about 300 degrees Fahrenheit, about 145, 150 degrees Celsius. And you want to take a piece of parchment paper or grease a cookie sheet, and you want to spread it out to about, I would say 8 inches, maybe a little more. It really depends on how much you want it. For the recipe purposes, I'll make it 8 inches. So we're simply going to pour it out. You can see there's still a few streaks of the white, which is completely fine. So you want to get it all out there. Looks fantastic, and it smells fantastic too. Just as a side note, I know I was mentioning I used a cider, a balsamic vinegar. If you don't have that, you could use, I think rice vinegar or a wine vinegar would work. Something acidic, whoops, like an acidic vinegar of some kind. I mean, you could even try just regular vinegar, but I just think that the balsamic, but I think balsamic and cocoa just, I think they complement so well together. Alright, well I think we've gotten pretty much all that we'll get out of this bowl. So now what you're going to want to do is just kind of, just using a spatula or an offset spatula or a knife, you just kind of want to kind of shape it to how you want it, so in a circle. This looks about 8 inches. Right, just heard a floor shake a bit. Very weird. Alright, well I'm going to leave it like that. And so what we're going to need to do, this needs to go into the oven for about 1 hour and 5 minutes. Now this, what you're looking for is for the top to have cracked, and it will have risen a little bit. And what we're going to do, once it's done, you turn your oven off and leave it in the oven. Because what we want to do is let this pavlova dry so that you have a very crunchy exterior, but the interior is still got that gooey goodness. So I'm going to put this in the oven at 300, and I will show you what it looks like once it's done. Okay, so as you can see, the meringue is out of the oven, and I did make it on the thin side. If you want to make it thicker, just really make sure that it's more round, and towards the center you want to maybe keep it 6 to 7 inches, but I did stretch it. When it comes out of the oven, it will shrink. It's inevitable. But I've basically done it so that it's nice and thin, so you can actually cut it like a pizza type of thing. And what I've put on top here is, instead of whipped cream, which I know a lot of pavlovas do, I figure, you know what would be a better option is just some regular Greek yogurt. You could use vanilla. I'm using vanilla in this case, or you could use plain. It depends on all your liking. You could even do creme fraiche. There's tons of options. And one thing I like to do is take some raspberries that have dried and just put them on top here. And I mean, just right now, it brings the dessert to a whole new level. So try to get the ones that aren't mushy. So you can kind of go like that. There we go. And maybe I'll just put this one right here. And one thing you can do is, I've kind of put it in the center, and for the outside, now that it's cooled, I put it in the oven for about 1 hour. Then I turn the oven off and let it cool for about 1 hour. And then I took it out, and by that time it was pretty cool, so I added the Greek yogurt. And there we go. This is just some confectioner sugar, powdered sugar, whatever you want to call it. I'm putting along the outside. And there you go. We've got a finished chocolate pavlova, a great holiday treat, or for any time of the year. Very easy and relatively quick to put together. The only thing that's time consuming is the amount of time it is in the oven. Other than that, it's a great option to consider. And using Greek yogurt instead of whipping cream is a way to make this dessert very nice and light, because oftentimes cake are very calorie dense, and I'm not saying that this is healthy, but I'm saying it's a healthier dessert option than others. I hope you enjoy this recipe. Please visit bakeyourway.com for more and for recipe details. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.